The observation deck of the Galactic Academy's training facility fell silent. 17 cadets from 12 different species pressed against the reinforced viewing glass. Their various appendages, eyes, and sensory organs all focused on the scene unfolding in the wildlife integration chamber below. Captain Mara Reese stood alone in the center of the sterile white enclosure, her standard-issue boots planted firmly on the synthetic ground. The human instructor's dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her uniform bore the insignia of the Interspecies Relations Division, a posting that most species considered either incredibly brave or monumentally foolish. "Instructor Vexthal," chirped Cadet Pym, a Keeksian whose feathers ruffled with anxiety. "Should the human not be wearing protective gear?" The juvenile craver has not yet learned bite inhibition. The towering reptilian instructor's tail swished as he checked his datapad. Captain Reese specifically requested no barriers. She claims it interferes with the bonding process. A collective murmur of concern rippled through the cadets. Craver were apex predators on their homeworld of scar-thresh, four-legged beasts covered in armored plates with jaws strong enough to crush durasteel. Even their young were formidable, weighing over 40 kilograms and possessing claws that could shred standard combat armor. The chamber door on the far side hissed open. For a moment, nothing emerged. Then, like a missile launched from a tube, a blur of gray scales and flailing limbs came rocketing across the floor. Riku, the Craver cub, was all oversized paws and uncoordinated enthusiasm. His armored plates not yet hardened, his fangs still milk-white. But what he lacked in development, he more than compensated for, with sheer velocity and volume. The youngling released a high-pitched roar meant to be intimidating but coming across as adorably squeaky as he barreled directly toward Captain Reese at full speed. Several cadets flinched. Cadet Talorn, a usually stoic Venturi, actually stepped back from the glass. "She's going to be trampled," hissed Cadet Zeph through his translator implant. "Humans may be durable, but that's still 40 kilos of muscle and claw moving at." Captain Reese dropped into a squat, her arms spreading wide in a gesture that every predator species in the room recognized as a threat display. Then she did something that made every cadet's universal translator malfunction for half a second from the sheer absurdity. She smiled. "Come here, little monster," Captain Reese shouted, her voice booming across the chamber with neither fear nor aggression, just pure, unfiltered joy. Riku's charge didn't slow. If anything, the cub accelerated, his claws scrabbling for purchase on the smooth floor. The distance closed rapidly. 20 meters. 15. 10. The impact was inevitable. What wasn't inevitable was what happened next. Captain Reese caught the charging Craver cub in her arms, absorbing the momentum by rolling backward and allowing the cub's weight to carry them both into a tumbling, laughing heap. Her arms wrapped around Riku's armored body as they rolled, and she immediately began what could only be described as aggressive affection, rubbing the cub's belly plates, scratching behind his auditory ridges, and making sounds that the translator unhelpfully rendered as, "Who's a good boy? Who's the most ferocious predator?" "Yes, you are." Riku's response was immediate and total surrender. The cub's stubby tail began wagging so hard his entire back end swayed. His previously fearsome roar dissolved into pleased churring sounds as he tried to lick every part of Captain Reese's face he could reach with his broad, rough tongue. "By the ancestors," breathed Cadet Pym. "Not it," Instructor Vexthal corrected, his scaled face somehow conveying approval. "Him. And yes, she is. This is what humans call roughhousing." On the chamber floor, Captain Reese had somehow maneuvered the considerably larger cub onto his back. Riku's legs kicked uselessly in the air as the human blew raspberries on his armored belly, a gesture that meant nothing to any species present but seemed to send the Craver cub into paroxysms of delight. "I don't understand," admitted Cadet Vorn, a crystalline lithid whose logic-based mind was clearly struggling. Craver are classified as threat level Sigma. They are responsible for 17 recorded fatalities of sentient beings. Why is the human treating a juvenile predator like a pet? Finished Cadet Talorn, awe creeping into his monotone voice. "She's treating a Craver like a companion animal, because to humans, Instructor Vexthal explained, bringing up a holographic display. Almost everything is a potential companion animal. Their homeworld, Earth, hosts some of the most diverse and dangerous fauna in the known galaxy. And humans, despite being relatively fragile compared to many species, have domesticated, befriended, or adopted hundreds of species, including several that could easily kill them. The hologram showed images, humans with massive fanged beasts called wolves, humans swimming with apex marine predators called sharks, humans hand-feeding creatures called bears that massed 3 times their weight. Humans possess what their xenopsychologists call aggressive nurturing instinct, the instructor continued. They see a dangerous creature, and their first impulse is not to flee or fight, but to ask, "Can I keep it?" Back in the chamber, Captain Reese had produced a rubber toy from her pocket standard enrichment equipment for young predators. She threw it across the room. Riku, who had been bred for hunting and killing, immediately scrambled after it with single-minded determination, retrieved it in his jaws, and brought it back to the human, dropping it at her feet with an expectant look. "Good boy," Captain Reese praised, throwing it again. The Craver cub charged after it with the same ferocity he'd initially charged at her. "This is insane," muttered Cadet Zeph. "My species developed plasma weaponry specifically to keep Craver away from our settlements. She's playing fetch with one." "Traver, this is the lesson," Instructor Vexthal announced, turning to address the assembled cadets. "Humans do not see the galaxy as we do. Where we see threats, they see potential friends. Where we see monsters, they see little monsters, a term of endearment. This is humanity's greatest strength and, occasionally, their most baffling weakness." Captain Reese had now convinced Riku to sit an impressive feat given that Craver anatomically weren't designed for the position. The cub wobbled, tail wagging, as the human produced treats from another pocket. "In 3 standard years," Instructor Vexthal said, "Riku will be assigned as Captain Reese's partner in the Frontier Diplomatic Corps. A fully grown Craver, bonded to a human. Together, they will mediate conflicts in sectors where both predator instinct and compassionate understanding are required." The cadets watched as Captain Reese stood, and Riku immediately pressed against her legs, looking up at her with what could only be described as adoration. She scratched behind his auditory ridges one more time, and even through the reinforced glass, they could hear her say, "You're going to be the best partner ever, aren't you, little monster?" Cadet Pym's feathers finally settled. "Perhaps," the Cheesian said thoughtfully. "We have much to learn from humans about turning enemies into allies." "Indeed," agreed Instructor Vexthal. Class dismissed. Next session. Why humans insist on keeping venomous creatures as house pets. Prepare accordingly.